Good evening, it's 6:02, and I will call to order this regular meeting of the Bandera City Council. Today is Tuesday, July 9th, and we are at 511 Main Street in Bandera, Texas. All council members are present with the exception of Brett Hicks. We also have our city administrator, city treasurer, and city secretary present. Thank you all for being here. If you will rise with me at this time for our invocation and pledge. Almighty God, we give thanks for the miracles of life and the abundant blessings we experience through your grace. I pray for the wholeness, wellness, and peace of all of your creation, knowing that this governing body and the individuals we serve are seeking solutions. May we continue to acknowledge your presence in our own hearts and in the hearts of one another. And may we all make ourselves available to your perfect answers to our questions. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Item 3 is visitors to be heard, to which we have none signed up to speak tonight. Item 3 is our consent agenda. Item A, approval of minutes from June 25th, 2024, regular city council meeting, June 25th, 2024, Board of Appeals meeting, and June 25th, Board of Adjustments meeting.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Tony and a second by Lynn. All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Item 5 is our staff reports. A is our quarterly investment report. City Treasurer Allison Wright.
Hey Council, we have our quarterly report, which y'all are used to. There's a couple things different on here, and I'll go over those with y'all as we go through it. But on the first page, you're gonna see our balance total with the CDs and our bank accounts as of April 31st, which was the last quarter, and then as of June 30th, which was this current quarter that just ended. You're gonna notice, which is one of the things I put on the cover page, our balance dropped about 200,000, and I listed the reasons why. We had some big items happen this last quarter, one of which was the sewer line replacement, which was 147,000. That entire project was completed in this quarter, so that was a big hit on the financials. We also reimbursed Best Western their 41,000 for hot tax, and then we gave the fire department their annual 5,000. So those three things all hit this quarter, so that was a little out of the ordinary for us, but we'll get back next quarter. Second page is the breakdown. It has our regular checking account, our grant account, and then our community policing account. You'll notice the balance on the community policing account jumped back up. As of this quarter, that CD was a 6-month CD, so that ended and it was transferred back into that bank account so that we can utilize that money for Halloween in just a couple months. So you'll see that change there, and then again, you'll see it down here on the CDs as that CD zeroes out this quarter. So you won't see that one on here next time until we renew it again next year if we decide to do that after the event's over. But other than that, everything else looks really good. We've had a couple of our CDs roll over with the same interest rate. They matured, and we're building still a lot of really good interest. So everything looks good there. Have any questions?
I have one.
It's okay.
On the hotel, we had talked about doing an audit. Did we do that?
An audit on, well, the hotel tax is separate from the property tax. So the hotel tax is only dependent on the fact that they paid it and they requested in time. So they did qualify to receive that
So they
reimbursement.
requested it in time?
Yes.
I thought there's nothing attached to that.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. There is a marketing plan they have to submit to the city administrator to approve, which he looked it over, he approved it. He asked me to look it over just to double check, and we looked it over and he approved the marketing plan, so we approved the reimbursement. And that's just as, their advertising and things like that.
So their employee retention, wasn't that part of it?
Yeah, it lists their full-time employees and salaries and things like that as well.
Are you talking about the 380 agreement specifically?
Yes.
That's a separate agreement. This is the tourism agreement, which is what the hot tax is based on.
And I do believe that the tourism agreement is predicated on adhering to the 380. They are tied in insofar as they have to satisfy both.
When we read it, because we did read the agreement before we released the payment, just to be sure, and we didn't see anything about that. All it said is the marketing plan has to be submitted in time. We have to release the payment within 10 days. It didn't reference the 380 agreement at all.
Thank you.
Is that all?
No other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, B is our budget update, city administrators, Sam Farmer, and city treasurer Allison Wright.
Thank you. I'm going to give you an update on where we are at the 9-month mark, which is through June 30th. This is in your packet, right? And what you have in your draft budget book is through 8 months, because that was so, like, you want to look up what's in the packet, which is through the 9 months. So 9 months is 75% of the year. So like when I was here, when we're halfway through the year, we want to be 75% on revenues or above will be the perfect world, and below 75% on expenditures. So I'm just going to hit a couple highlights. Please stop me if you have any questions on anything. So I'm just going to hit a couple highlights.
Yes, it's up on the screen.
Okay, so on page 1, general fund, the Marshall revenue is very high there, you'll see. That is because of several grants. So I will get to that on page 3 and talk about that in a second. But also court revenue is down. It's at 44% approximately. And we track that every month and see the revenue and the tickets written, and the tickets have been down quite a bit. So, and the warrants. So that is down quite a bit. Park revenue is at 64%. And I will get to this, but the park admission, where we actually charge on the weekends, is down quite a bit. We've only raised 23,000, or is that 23%, right? 23,000?
23%, 29,000.
29,000. So we've raised 29,000, but 8,000 of that is from the Eclipse event on one day. So if you take that out, on normal park admissions, we've raised 21,000. Okay. So we also have expenditures, which you can see down below on page 1, seasonal park department of 11,683. So we are making money in the park, but it is marginal. And the last couple of weekends have been very dead and marginal profit, but we are still in the black. We are still positive at this point. If we get to the point where we only have a little over a month till Labor Day, but if it ever gets closer to that point, we keep having bad weekends, we might come back to you to just close, not charge, and let those workers go, so we don't keep incurring that cost every weekend, because we're not making the revenue to cover it before we go into the black or the red there. So, revenue, and this is thanks to all the line item, just revenue, 13,000 was budgeted, and we raised 49,000. That is for all the investments that Allison just went over. So bottom line is we're at 90% for percent of budget for revenue in the general fund. Down below is expenditures, and we are at 75%. There's just 3 departments I'll go to here in a second, but the finance department's a little over 75. Marshall's department is a little over 80, and then the fire department is at 100%. So I'll explain a little bit more. Those are timing things, just like we talked about in the past, but I will go to that. So I will go to page, let's see, we already talked about the park revenue, so go to page 9, please. And that is,
Can I get a copy of what you're going through? Because I didn't get it emailed to me, or it's not coming up in my email.
The packet that Jill emailed.
Okay, it just showed that.
okay, so we're on page 9.
9 on the budget or 9 on the packet?
I'm sorry, on the budget, on this item, the actual printout.
Okay.
Yeah, that's six, page six, yeah, 7.
So it's 18 in the packet, and
Do you want a hard copy one? I can make you a copy of mine.
Well, are we gonna go over the budget? Are we gonna have a budget workshop?
We are, I'm just
Okay.
trying to hit the 9-month mark where we are now, real quickly. So, page 9, which we're on right now, which is the finance department. If you go down to computer and office equipment, there is software subscription fees. And that was already paid out in its entirety, so it's at 95%, but we're done with that. Okay? If you go down to audit fees, we talked about this before, that's paid out, it's complete, and it's at, 9,000 or 109%. So those two timing things are making that a little bit high in that department. Okay, so page 11, Marshall's department. Okay, so once again, go down to computer and office equipment, we got software subscription fees, it's at 175%. That was going over for those two, but they're all done now, so we're done with that for the year. We also have an expense here, grant funded laptop purchase, which obviously we got after the beginning of the year. So there was zero budgeted, but we have an $18,000 year-to-date total actually spent on that. So that computer and office equipment is primarily why this department is over. Also on the vehicle, that purchase is completely done. It came in under budget, but it's already purchased. It's at the 91%. Right below that, vehicle maintenance is about 91%. So those two things, or those handful of things, are what's driving the Marshall department a little bit over on expenditures at this point. And then if we just go page 24 on the budget, Jill, we'll get to the fire department. The fire department, we paid out 100% of their 5,000. That's over and done with, and utilities have been a little bit higher than budgeted over there, so that's why that's at 100.65. And then, any questions on the general fund? Okay, utility fund, you can see there, we're at 76% for revenues and 73% for expenditures. Now, you will see that the revenue, the first line item, is at 70%, which is all our water and sewer.
I'm sorry.
page
Page 1 of the
of the
utility.
utility fund.
34 of your packet.
There.
Okay, so that top line is 70, it concerns me a little bit, it's a little low, that's where we have all our charges for service, water, and sewer. But we do have two other line items that are quite a bit over on revenue, so we're at 76. So I'm gonna go to page 2, just the next page. Okay, you can go all the way to the top there, Jim. Okay. So, if you look at the first one, water service, residential inside, and look at all the inside ones, the third one down, water service fee, commercial inside. Okay, and the fifth one down, wastewater service, residential inside. And then the seventh one down, wastewater, commercial service inside. All those are quite a bit less than 75%. So the revenue was just a little bit overestimated for those items. So we will adjust that in next year's budget. Okay, so that is why we're down at the bottom there on this line, total revenue is 7.
And people are concerning water. due to
Okay,
the
sir,
drought.
yes, yeah, that's true, that's true. Yes, it could be both, that's right. Yes. Then on page 4, okay, this is the water department. This department's at 83+%. So once again, like those other departments I went over, if you go down to the bottom of page 4, computer and office equipment, once again, subscriptions, software subscriptions is done. You did go over the budget amount slightly. And if you go down to vehicles, vehicle replacement at the bottom of the page is at 100%. So that is bought and paid for. I'm done. Is there any questions on the utility or general fund in 9 months? We're doing very good, very well.
Thank you, Stan. All right, item 6 is our budget workshop. So given that our binders have, last month's numbers, are we just still gonna work for a year from now?
Yeah, it's just
Right.
8 months, but we still have the draft budget, the proposed budget is still good.
Next year.
For next year, it's still good.
And do you have a format for this budget workshop?
Yes, I do have a couple handouts and some items to cover. So I would cover handout and calendar. This is an updated calendar, so the calendar I've passed out before. I will slightly go over this just to hit the high spots.
I'm gonna throw this one away.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so draft budget, I'm just gonna go down to where we are today, July 9th. Everything above that was the same. So July 9th, we got our budget workshop here, regular council meeting. By the end of this week is the deadline to file the proposed budget with the city secretary, which has to be at least 30 days prior to the city council passing the tax levy. Now, that can change after that. I'm sure you're familiar with this in the past, so that is not a locked-in budget. Changes can happen after that, but so the public can view something that has to be filed on July 12th, no later than July 12th. July 23rd is the next regular council meeting. There can be a budget workshop there too. We can talk more about the budget. And then July 25th, the certified taxable valuations deadline for Bandera CAD is due to us. We have preliminary numbers. That's what we created the budget on. Also, we have August 7th is proposed property tax notice to be published in the newspapers. And then August 13th, which is a regular council meeting, we will have a public hearing for the tax rate and adopt the 2025 tax rate. And then there's another notice we have to get in the newspaper for the budget. So August 27th, regular council meeting, first public hearing for the budget. And then the second public hearing could be as early as September 10th. And the council can approve the budget as early as September 10th, but of course they could go to September 24th or as late as September 30th.
So this is an updated budget calendar. I'm not seeing a workshop with the
That's what I
EDC.
was gonna say
Okay,
as well.
well, that was gonna be one of the topics to pick. I don't know that date, so we're gonna pick that and we can add that to the calendar
Okay.
whenever you choose.
Well, I guess it needs to be as soon as possible since we have to meet all these deadlines.
It could be the next meeting.
Can we do
Or the
July
next-
23rd, I guess?
Well,
Or,
if that works for the EDC board members, I think that's the question is, can we task, city secretary with reaching out to both boards and doing a poll on dates? If we can, tag it on to an existing meeting, that would be great, if that works. So I think it's just a matter of scheduling it when everybody's ready to do it.
Jill, okay, so this is the current, okay, so what you've seen on the board is what's in your packet there?
or in this notebook you gave us, because that's what I went over, is this notebook.
Right.
It's the same, so that on there is exactly what's in your.
Okay, not what you,
Yeah.
Went over
Maybe-
today.
well, we went over early was the end of June
Okay.
30th. And that was just to show you at 9 months, the most current, we are good on the budget. But this.
Okay,
budget
so
information is
before we move forward, is Jill going to be contacting the EDC? Is that a done?
I got that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
So, any questions so far? I wanted to go into water and sewer rates and give you a handout there for that too.
I handed it out already. It's
Oh,
okay.
that's right, that's right. And we had that on the,
Are there, I have two, is that, are there two different
They're
things?
different. The mayor requested two different options. So one of them is a 1.5 increase across the board. The other one is a tiered increase based on water consumption. So there's two options there for y'all to consider.
Which one are you going over first?
we'll go over the one that's just the 1.5. Okay, and I know
So can you differentiate, you see in the percent change column, it says 1.5 repeatedly. We on the same page?
Okay, that's what's up on the screen too. So just as a reminder, I know we went through this when we had the meetings, but in the draft budget, there's no water and sewer rate increase. However, I do suggest to keep up with inflation, that we at least have some small increase to avoid a larger increase down the road if we get in a pattern of no increases for several years. So this is a very small increase of 1.5%. It doesn't even start, for example, on the very top line, conservation rate. Somebody uses 0 to 1,500 gallons. Their current rate is 25.01. And I'm proposing, in this proposal, 0% change. And then as it steps up, it has the 1.5. 1501 to 2000, and then down below that, the 2005, 5 to 15, et cetera. And then you can see the new rate, so you can see how small those actual new rates are.
Just out of curiosity, what percentage of our bills do people fall in that first rate, that first category of 0 to 1,500 gallons?
Couldn't answer that question. Our system doesn't run reports that way. We have to go through each bill to see how much water people use.
It's safe to say a lot of the residential users, a large percentage, I don't know if it's a large minority or it actually goes in the majority, would be in that category.
So there would be no increase.
So there would be no rate increase, right?
That's right. That would
That's what
make
you're
sense.
saying.
So the people that earn fixed income that use a little water, try to watch their water, and are conservative to get below it, they would not see a rate increase on this. It would not be until somebody uses 1501, 1,501 gallons or above, that they would get the 1.5% increase. Okay, if we go down to the sewer, the same thing. 0 to 1,500 gallons. It's 0 change. Of course, we just meter the water, but we base their sewer on how much gallons of water they use. And then outside the city limits, at the bottom there, you'll see it's 0% for the first 0 to 1,500 gallons. Goes up, and then the out of city limit sewer, the same thing at the bottom. Conservation rate 0 to 1,500 gallons is 0% change there. Now this one, Allison did some great estimating, but this would raise about 9,900. That's $10,000 in new revenue. And this is just the residential, inside and outside. So 9,900 in new revenue.
How do they know that? You just told me that you don't know what percentage of
Yeah.
people.
We took our current revenue we brought in, projected it out to the end of the year, and added 1.5% to it.
But you just told me a while ago that,
Well, we know our total revenue, but I can't tell you how much of that revenue is for people that use 5,000 gallons or people that use 1,500 gallons. We just know the total revenue. So if we're doing a straight increase across the board, 1.5%, it would have been 9,900.
But it will be significantly less
Less.
when X number of customers
Yeah.
are not
Well,
gonna
when
have.
I
Yeah, so
figured
that
that
would be a
number,
good
we had,
number.
when I figured that number, we had the 1.5 in the lower tier as well.
So
yeah,
we
there's-
would be less than 9,900. So,
So it's not
so,
correct.
so yeah.
It's not
I'm
correct.
not entirely correct, and it would be a lot less than that. So it's a small amount of revenue collected increase.
I mean, if we're gonna do an increase, I think we need to do an increase across the board, even for
Was the
the
1.5% in there, whenever you calculated the amount?
Well, if you
Just
added
make that clear.
those, then it would be closer to 9,900 if you
Right.
added those.
And I don't, okay, so do you wanna stick with water and wastewater rates for now? And go over to the
It's
commercial?
just a small
Let me just go to the
increase.
commercial, which, yeah, one more page. So this is commercial rates. That's commercial
That's
property rates.
garbage.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you have it in front of you. There should be a commercial water and sewer rates effective
Flag
October
past it.
21st, 24. Inside the city limits, outside the city limits in front of
That's
you.
all I have.
Yes.
Same exercise. This one, although it goes from 0 to 2,000 gallons for the commercial water inside the city limits, and we have 0% there, and then 1.5 for all categories.
That's not
half of
that
that.
one.
And then you have outside city limits at the bottom. Conservation rate 0 to 2,000, 0%. So with everybody being charged the 1.5, like you said, it would be 7,600. Okay, so
So,
this is one proposal.
right, can we move over to the other
Yes,
one?
yes. So the next one looks similar, but the numbers are different. So we got that one up on the board. So it starts out again, inside the city limits, residential water and sewer rates. The water is 0% increase, or 0 to 1,500 gallons. It is 1.5 still for the 1501 to 2000, and I guess it's 2000, 5,000 right below that. However, then you'll see at the 5,000, 15,000 gallons, it is 2% and steps up 2.5 and 3. So this is more of a stair step. Once again, the low-end users do not get a charge. And the high-end users of 25,000 or above gallons gets 3%.
I struggle with it a little bit. The time when my water bill was the highest was when I had kids that were young, and if you've got a young family, with young children who are on a fixed income, running a washer all the time to wash clothes and wash babies, I mean, I've been there, and it takes a lot of water, and you're gonna charge them more. I just,
That's the concept of the conservation rate, which we did discuss and give assurances to the public when we adopted our water conservation.
yeah, I just struggle with, that if we're gonna penalize, I mean, like I said, I think the highest water users are a bigger family, so if a person has 5 kids, we're gonna punish them, more than
Is that the
an
higher?
entire.
I understand the theory.
I think it's true. I mean, when I had 4 children living in my house, I washed clothes every day. They showered every day, plus me, so I had 6 people showering every day. And now it's just me and my husband, and so that we don't use as much water, so I have to agree with you. And
And
a
you're-
family,
And you're on the opposite end of your career, that the times when I had the biggest struggle paying my bills was when I had little kids. Trying to juggle all that, so. That's my thoughts, I'd say if we're gonna do it, we should do it across the board, and fair with everybody.
that's what I say, 1.5% across the board. For our water and garbage and,
Now, the
Garbage is
garbage is gonna be a flat
1.5.
pass-through of 5%.
oh, okay, yeah, there it is.
So Stan, do you feel that 1.5 really addresses the type of increase that we need to see for the system? And I think that it's important to remember that we're really not just paying for gallons of water, we're paying for the whole infrastructure of the system. And so to see,
Well, another alternative is you've seen 1.5 flat rate pretty much. I know the top has 0, but close to 1.5 entirely. And you can see that those rates on customers, you can pick any of these categories, some go up cents, literally. Okay, so hypothetically, if you feel like that is not much of a burden at 1.5 on the flat rate, that's gonna be, if you go to 3% or 2%, it's gonna be marginally more. And to the mayor's point, would help us in the long run keep up with inflation and being able to pay for the infrastructure.
So should we talk about going up 2% or 2.5%? across the board? I mean, we can kind of see what the difference will be by these numbers that they did the tier effect on.
Well, you can take any of the 1.5 and, you know, the difference on this, if you look at the 1501 to 2,000 gallons, for example, it's $30.01 at the top. 1.5, it goes up 45 cents. So if we went at 3%, it'd go up 90 cents.
I think 3% is too much.
I mean,
Yeah,
look
we
at
might-
everybody's appraisal values, I mean,
Yeah, there's nothing enough.
we're struggling to live in this town. That's a fact. That's why we got so many houses that are Airbnbs.
Maybe you could make the money there too, but besides that, I mean, they're struggling out there, they really are. And with inflation, food, fuel, I don't think this is the time to go up. I think we need to put a percentage in, but I'm not in favor of 3%. Even in our businesses, I mean, their rates are high.
Well, you want to do it at 2%?
Honestly, what I'd like to see, or just go across the board at 1.5, but if anybody were to put in, or offer incentives for rain catchment or something like that, where people are doing that, but I'm we're not gonna get that in the budget in time, but I think that people that have got rain catchment systems, that we should incentivize that as much as we can. Personally, but
Those kind of affect our bottom line, but I understand. what
But
you're
I mean,
saying.
as far as catching every little bit of water, I mean, I don't know when, significant rain again, but, you know, we need to really be watching for that.
You could always start that grant idea after the first year. That's not something that has to be started on the first day of the year. So
I
your
say we
point.
go up 2%.
Seems reasonable. You know, I think it's probably time to think about another rate study. I don't know if this council has had the opportunity to reflect on the past rate study that called for incremental changes, but I do believe they were all over 2%, and it was a recommendation for an annual increase to catch up with, to keep up with our costs.
Right.
So,
I think it was also because we weren't keeping up in the first place. We weren't really increasing. So we kind of fell
prior to
behind.
that,
So now we're trying to play catch up. And when you increase something significantly, people pay attention to that. As opposed to doing baby steps where it's not so hard to swallow. But we're in this situation, so we have to address it. I'm not against the 2%. I think anything higher could be a little bit tricky. I mean, you know, if you wanted to do something like a 3% for the 25,000 gallon, the 25,000 gallons is quite a bit. That's your top tier. You know, if you're exceeding that, there could be a significant increase for something like that. But I think the first two tiers, you know, the 5 to 15,000, could definitely be a little more minimal.
I would be curious to know if there's been any confirmation from our software company that that type of report cannot be generated.
I asked Katie and she contacted Encode and they said no.
So then it would just take an audit
Of
for
each
staff
account,
to
yeah,
audit.
the average usage of each account.
Can you just dump everything in the spreadsheet?
Yeah, but you'd have to physically open each account and get the numbers out of it, so, I mean, it'd be time consuming, but it's definitely possible.
And additionally, I think it would be helpful for council to see like the past 10 years of what is the historical information? How much have these rates increased over time? It could be time for a more significant increase, or it may not be. But there's a rate study that would be good to review, even though it's from the past.
it was a forecast of the future. And then, you know, what is the historical information? Because we're really just trying to make somewhat of an arbitrary decision here. 1.5%, 2%, not knowing how many customers are impacted, you know, at different consumption rates. Could be helpful to make a more informed decision on that.
Data that I'm looking at, our rates are not cheap, as it is. I mean, Kerrville's $4, up to 25,000 gallons, 485 up to 50,000 gallons.
We know they have a diversified water system that we do not have. And I think if you were to compare to other private water suppliers in the area, it might be a different story, you know.
MDU, we're higher than MDU's rates.
And where do they service?
New Braunfels.
Oh, the Bronzeville's utility. I'm thinking of
And they're dying for what they're doing.
local.
I mean, I don't see our water rates as out of line, and I think of 1.5 or 2% across the board. I'm just not in favor of punishing larger water users if they're big families. I feel like that's.
I think we need to make a decision on either the 1.5 or the 2% tonight, so that we can move forward.
If we go to 2%, we've got a high, low tier water rate in comparison to the 3 that I just looked at. We need to start looking at some capital improvement funds or something if we need to improve our water system too. Some grants and stuff like that. We can't just rely on our users. And paying taxes, their appraisals are going up. I mean, everybody's getting pitched every which way to look.
Do you guys have a consensus?
Yeah, I'd like to move forward with either 1.5 or 2. I can get on board with either, but we got a lot to cover, so. 25 minutes.
Yeah, that's,
I'm in favor of 1.5 across the board. That's a
I'll go with the 1.5 across the board
We
if
can
that's the
always
rest of the
really
council.
look at it in the road. I would like to have more information before we raise it anymore. I mean, you know.
So let's do it at 1.5% across the board.
Is a consensus sufficient for this at the moment, and then we'll adopt the entire schedule all at once? Does anybody have any questions about the garbage rates? It's a pass through from
As per the
Republic
contract.
5%.
As long as we're making some money off it.
We do collect more than we pay, yes.
When is that contract up for renewal?
October 1st of 25.
So have we been able to do a poll on if we're charging for all the totes that are at the different residents?
We had a
Have we been
meeting
able to
with
do that?
Terry Golick yesterday. We are still working with them to get a list from them on what they charge us for toters.
Cause that was, we were having problems, as we had residents with 3 toters and they were only paying for 1, but the garbage, they were charging us for 3.
So they're doing an audit.
Stan and I have been in constant contact with them. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I had Terry come in for the meeting. They finally admitted they don't really have a list of all the residential accounts. They finally admitted they couldn't.
Well, can't we put a note in our utility bills that, if they have more than 1 toter, that they're gonna start being charged for?
Well, we have account data for what we charge people, which we feel confident of. It's trying to get a list out of Republic, which they never had. So that we have a good list, so they are, on Friday, Katie is gonna ride around in the garbage truck, I believe, and do a house count again, but this is a better house count than the waste of time last one they put us through. So, and then we have a public works employee in there too, that's familiar with the addresses, and so it's gonna go a lot better.
Because a lot of the houses aren't marked, so A lot of times Republic doesn't even know the address to the house.
Yeah, and that's an ordinance that's been in effect for 4 years, that I've been working on. Please get the address. I don't know why aren't we
Well,
taking care of
I
that?
think it would be efficient that while they're doing this run, that was considered and, that those notices were provided.
Yeah,
Well, we've been, like I said, we have been working with them over about 2 months.
and
right here.
we need to
Republic.
start finding people now.
Oh, you're talking about the address.
Yeah. I mean, we've reminded them, that's been in ordinance for the last 4 years, 5 years. Remind.
I would like to see that type of efficiency, that if we're sending staff out to do a trash can audit, that we're auditing other things as well.
Might as well be looking at the other things as well. Address.
Okay, so moving past the rates,
Yes,
Are
so
those-
thank you.
that's all of the fee schedule we're covering tonight.
That's right.
Okay.
And then, tax rate, so the tax rate is 47 cents. A little over 46 plus is the O and M, operation maintenance, and a little over to 42, I'm sorry, did I say 46? 42, sorry, thank you. And then we have a little over 2 for the INS, which we need to start doing the INS correctly. We were only had the INS rate enough to collect the interest, and we were paying the principal, moving that over from the O and M. So I noticed this when we started, when I first got here, and applied for the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, and they look at our financials. We had to do a lot of time convincing them that our INS was not incorrect, that we were moving the principal payments over to the INS, but we really have to have an INS rate that collects them for that principal and interest, okay? So it all works out the same, because instead of moving some money over from the O and M, we just raise the O and M rate can go down a little bit and the INS will go up. Okay, so it's all gonna work out at this point the same, but still 47 cents. That would be a good correction to make for our financials.
But you'll have the tax worksheet.
Oh, exactly, at the first hearing that we have coming up, yep.
Well, if we're gonna go up on the utilities across the board, then I would say we keep the tax rate the same. I mean, I don't think we need to go up on everything. We need to go up on the tax rate and our utilities, or, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there for discussion.
Well, we won't really know until we have the tax worksheet if we need to go up or down for no new revenue.
Yeah, because everybody's values went up, so
We need to know what the,
Yeah.
right.
We'll adjust that in the future.
Okay, all right, so we went to the second there. Okay. We spent some time talking about a joint project with the EDC. So we talked about the street upgrade would be one. I do have some information on that, working with our financial advisor. So I'd like to follow up and have that information for you, and I'd like to share that with you. If we did a hypothetical project for upgrading all the streets completely in our inventory, which is 10 miles, knowing that some of those streets don't need upgrading, like 11th Street. So anyway, I started with a project total of $7.5 million. Okay. If the EDC funded half of that and we borrowed 3.75 million, finance that over 25 years, and we used the assessed value of 165 million, which we have preliminary now, increase that 3% next year, per year. Anyway, we come up with a debt service payment of $255,000 per year. Now that is 11 cents on the INS rate, so it's a little higher than I thought it was gonna be, but 1 penny on the tax rate only raises $16,500, so. But I promised you that information, so I wanted to provide that for you. Now this is with DEC funding the other half, but we could upgrade all the roads at one time. And that would be a big improvement as we talked about to the city, but even borrowing half at 3.75 million would be 11 cents on this rate.
Is that something you're suggesting or just something you're updating the council on?
I'm just updating the
research?
council, at this point.
And then we also, we're gonna, we're gonna direct the EDC board on some projects that the council has in mind that we would possibly like to see them contribute to too. So at least we would have some information before we had that joint EDC. Which
With
direction
this-
that we want them to go.
But with this debt service, where does that leave us with our debt capacity for the wastewater treatment plant?
Yes, and that's a great question. So it's a little bit of an unknown because we don't know. We could still do the pad funding, which is $105,000 payment, okay? Which even if that's in this next budget, we can absorb in the general fund, utility fund. But you're right, to your point, we don't know how much we'd have to borrow ultimately for the rest of the project, and that's why we're waiting for the next 2025 cycle. And those numbers come out at the end of later this year, if they're on time, which is the newest cycle, and because we're only gonna be asking for 10.9 million at that point, not 15.5 if we do the pad. And so the 10.9, what percentage of that is gonna be, principal forgiveness? And what would we actually have to borrow? We knew if we had to borrow the full 10 million, we could not absorb that. So, it's a timing thing, so, that I can't answer right now.
Yes, Lynn?
And then we have already kind of talked to discuss with EDC that we want some money earmarked for the wastewater treatment site as well. And so, we wanted to be sure and set them. I think that was the $500 they have, 500,000 plus interest it's making that they have at the somewhere. Not Bandera Bank. They don't have it at Bandera Bank. Where is it, Deanna?
Dallas at the end.
So we kind of already discussed that they earmarked that money for the wastewater, so hopefully they agree with that.
There could be a future principal payment though.
Yeah,
That will be-
some form of fashion for that.
Well, it will be.
Yeah, because you're not gonna give us the whole 10 million, that's right. So the best case scenarios would be about 3 we would have to borrow, in the best case scenario, if it's still around 10 or 11, based on the 70%. But I can't tell you if they're gonna do that.
Debbie?
So going back to the road upgrades, that's what you called it, right?
Street project.
What are we just retopping everything? What are we doing? When you're
Okay,
saying
so-
road upgrade,
Yeah,
what
that's
do
a
you
great
mean?
question, I'm sorry, I should explain that better. So, for the public, so it's a complete rehab of the road. So what they do is they have this machine that comes up and actually grinds up the road in place. And a lot of that grinding up stuff is turned into the base, the new base, and creates that thicker base, okay? And then you install ribbon curbs, which are flat ribbon curbs, 12 inches wide, that helps asphalt breaking off and moisture getting underneath. That's installed by machine. And then of course, it's all compacted properly and all those tests are done. And then you lay, 2 inches, 1.5 inches of asphalt, new hot mix asphalt. So it would be a brand new road built in place. So you would have that shiny dark black road asphalt with a 12-inch ribbon curb on the edge that makes the road last because that asphalt
How
doesn't
much
break.
money does the ribbon,
How much?
how much money does it make for the ribbon?
A lot longer. Probably double the lifespan.
So going back to though our previous, 7-year plan with our streets assessment that we accomplished 2 or 3 years of, plus some additional projects, was it 2? Plus some additional projects due to extra funding. I think that it would be beneficial to have that kind of reevaluated, reassessed, and look at budgeting the annual projects out over time as opposed to, a $7.5 million
project that, how many miles of street are you gonna be able to do in a year? I mean, I don't know if you've evaluated that plan at all. And if you don't like it, if it's a bad idea,
7 years.
No, I mean, I think everybody would love to have brand new streets. And if we do it, I think we need to do it with ribbon curves, and I think it could be accomplished in a pretty short order. You could probably get that done in a year,
Smaller streets?
maybe two. It depends on logistics, right, of what you can close at certain times, but, it's not a long process once you get going. It's just how you navigate traffic.
I just wonder if we're spending more money ultimately by segmenting, the project over a longer period of time and just budgeting for that annually? Or is it a benefit to us to go out and buy this money to see this project finished for the residents?
It's absolutely gonna cost less to do it this way.
But then when we weigh in the debt service for the wastewater
Right.
treatment plant, is it possible? And I'd rather see some progress year after year
Sure.
than nothing happening.
Yeah.
But I would like to have that plan kind of reevaluated and upgraded to include the ribbon curving moving forward, to get that better product and that longer lasting project.
I don't think that project was estimated with that.
It wasn't, that's why I asked for the reevaluation.
Well, that will drive up the cost, I would say.
Sure.
I think it's a good investment. But the problem is, we're, on this draft budget, just the word draft, in the general fund, we're 104 positive. So, piecemealing it, it's just gonna take beyond my lifespan almost to upgrade the roads if you keep doing it that way. If we had 300,000, even if we had 300,000 surplus or something, you had the debt payment right there. So I would almost suggest that, doing it all at once as opposed to even at 300,000 a year. Because a mile is really going to be roughly, 700, 650,000 a mile to do this. So, we have 102 in the street fund, and we have 104 this year. So, best case scenario, we have 200,000 to build, but quarter mile. And that's why I'm just saying it would be so drawn out that way.
You got these numbers from contractor?
I did talk to a contractor and had experience with that contractor in Horseshoe, where he did 50 miles of the road. So I was very familiar with how to do it in place.
How long did it take you to redo 50?
Well, that was 6 years, but I think we did about 5 miles in a year easy. We did 5-mile contracts. Well, I must have done more than that, but I didn't have 6 years, but I do remember 6 years. I guess we did about 10 in a year. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 6 years, yeah. Because then it'd be a little bit more than 52 miles, so. So I guess we went out for.
Did you say we had 11?
We're at 10. Like 11th Street was just done and that asphalt's in great condition, so maybe it's just about installing, not tearing up the whole road, and just putting in the ribbon curves. So there'd be slight invasive, but you put it back and, there will be some patching, but it's not the full cost of 650,000 for 11th Street per mile cost, because you just add in the ribbon curves and such, so.
I think we want to try to do everything we can to budget for items like this, but I don't know that we can make a decision until we get through next year's cycle to see what our debt payment's gonna be on
Yeah.
wastewater treatment plant. But,
Yeah. And we could even start this project, so to that point, we could wait till the fall and wait till find out, to your point, where we are in that next cycle and how much is gonna be forgiveness and how much we have to borrow. And we'll have that data, and then, hypothetically, you could go back to the roads if we have the best case scenario and go, hey, we have a lot of bandwidth, we have the bandwidth after the rest of the money for the wastewater plant to borrow for this. And then start that mid-year, knowing you're not gonna have you're not gonna borrow to have that debt payment for the next year anyway. So we don't have to wait necessarily a full year from now to go, let's talk about it then if we have enough good information.
I think it would be an incredible upgrade and a well overdue upgrade for our residents.
And the citizens would love it.
Yeah, you can't run a stroller down some of these roads. let alone ride a bike and skateboard or whatever.
Patching, it's just not doing it anymore. The patching doesn't last 4 months.
Yeah, exactly. It's just to the point, yeah.
So in this fiscal year though, Maple Street will be reconstructed.
Yes, as part of the fifth, that's correct. And that would be mileage or linear feet off of the project I just described. So that would be not another example of not a full 10 miles that we would need to upgrade. Because you're right, the fifth would upgrade Maple.
Well, I'm in favor of the project, but I think we have to, know, a little more
Other things.
information, I'm sure, so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Always wait for information on the wastewater plant.
I'm also really just kind of anxious to see how this council agrees on overall on the capital improvement projects and plan, and how that's reflected in the master plan, which we really should always be using as our guide and updating it as needed to include projects that we want to add. So that as people change out and come and go, those things are, those line items that we're putting money into year after year or whatever we're saving to accomplish, that's in line with the master plan. And I suppose it might be something to consider if we take the time to review that 7-year street plan. Is there anything else, are there any other streets or parts of streets that we should think about tackling in this budget cycle, in addition to Maple? Maple Street's gonna be a really great improvement.
Who's doing Maple?
It's a part of the flood
It's part of
infrastructure fund.
Oh, okay. And when do they plan on doing that?
Ground breaks in January about.
Okay.
Get it out in the
So-
fall and hopefully start construction in January, February.
There'll be a presentation to council in August.
Actually, Jonathan's gonna be here on the 23rd.
Oh, that's this one?
Yeah.
Oh, this month.
So July 23rd, Jonathan will be here to talk about that.
What are we moving on to?
Okay, so unless there's anything, I know the wastewater treatment plant's always an EDC thing that I don't know if we have to rehash any of that. It's a project, but, and then salaries there. So I think I have a handout here, so.
So I have your June budget meetings discussion items. Is that what you're going off of also?
Yes,
That you provided?
yes, at the top there, like we talked about. Is it done?
No, this is CAD documents.
Are we talking this right now?
Yeah.
No, I have a handout. I think it's that thing I sent you.
The email,
June budget meetings, discussion items.
where he's working off of that, yes, but he's speaking about the Excel spreadsheet that he emailed last night.
Apologize, I know it was here.
Subject line spreadsheet. Oh, yesterday at 3:39 p.m.
Okay, she's gonna print that off again. Here it is. Sorry about that. I know it's here somewhere.
I don't need a paper.
Okay,
Oh,
Okay.
so you're just talking about the employee pay.
yes, that's right. I was just gonna hand that out. So everybody have that, or do you need a copy?
No, I got it.
You got it, all of them.
So that, I think we all got it.
Sorry about that. No, it's my folder. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Here. Okay, so I did email this to you, I believe yesterday, so we have the current salary. Once again, I just wanted to put some pay raise in there as a placeholder so you can see what the effect was on the budget. And with the 3%, we still are positive, 104,000 in the general fund and 207,000 in the utility fund. But that was just a placeholder, but now you have some data with that 3%, what that looks like for each of the 21, 22 employees there. And the effect on the general fund is 25,000 if it was a full, all 24 paychecks. Started October 1st or shortly after.
What did you say, the utility fund?
The utility fund's 8,000, but the general fund's 25,000. About 32,000 total for a 3%.
Well, I'm just gonna say, I don't think, and this is just my opinion, and the rest of the council work, this is for discussion. With all of the projects that we need to get done for our citizens here in Bandera, the streets, the wastewater, other big projects, and we're going up on their utility rates, I don't think it's a good idea to give our employees a raise right now. After looking at what they make, except for maybe a few in the public works, and I don't know if they're at that lower rate because they were just hired, and that's what we hired them at. But I feel that this year, we should not give any raises whatsoever. I think we need to save that money, whatever little it is, for whatever projects that the city needs to get done. I truly believe that. I think by looking at these rates that we're paying right now, that everybody's making, I'm not gonna say enough money, because money is never, it's never enough. But I think these salaries are pretty comparable about for what they would make in larger cities even. So I think we've gone up, we went up last year, they got a 30% raise across the board the year before that. In 2020,
20%.
okay, 20%, okay, so 20% across the board. 2 years ago, we did the 3% last year, didn't we? Didn't we do a cost of living last year?
Made it available for merit raises.
Yes. I'm not opposed to that solution like we did last year. Based on performance, especially for the public works people. But yeah, administrative, it's still pretty high. That 20% kind of threw it out there. I think for a lot of us, but that's my opinion as well.
Yeah, I got a slightly different opinion just because it was a salary or wage study done, right? And that 20%, from what I wasn't here, but what I understand is it kind of leveled us up to where we needed to be. We are going through a cycle where we're gonna be asking a lot of these people. We've got a bunch of grants that need to be put in. We need to make sure that we're getting these grants filed to make sure that we can accomplish these projects. We're gonna have bigger projects that are gonna need to be watched over by our public works folks. I don't think we're gonna hire a general contractor. I don't think we're gonna hire a third-party construction manager to come in and watch it. That'll be throwing good money after that, in my opinion. And so we're just gonna be asking a lot of these people. And I'm of the opinion you get what you pay for. And if these folks are working hard, I'd at least like to see us budget for that 3%. And then again, I think we should put it out there as merit raises where folks, for the administrative thinks that those are worthy of being allocated. We just spent 15 minutes talking about rate increases and how everybody's getting pinched, and I mean those are the same people that are working for the city that
I think they're making good money.
We're talking about the permanent, right?
I'm just talking about.
I mean, that hurt.
I don't want to talk about specific
Yeah,
folks in this city.
I'm talking about overall, in my opinion.
Well,
I mean, if you wanna do merit raises, if you wanna budget for something like that, I might be willing to do that, but in my opinion, is no raises whatsoever this year. But maybe we can look at it again next year. I really don't, I don't think, I think that, we have too many projects. And then for our citizens to hear, if they were to see how much these people make,
This is an open meeting, this is a
Yeah.
public record.
And everybody has access to that, so. Again, I just, the rate of inflation, the things that are going on within our community, if we don't keep up, I don't wanna get into a cycle, I feel like we finally got good people working for us. And we don't wanna get into a cycle where we've got so much turnover again. We wanna try to create some tenure, within our staff, so we can accomplish great things.
well, they're making pretty good money. I don't think they're gonna go anywhere else and
Well,
make that kind of money, so, to be honest with you.
I have not done that research, but I would like to do that research before we decide, whether we're gonna do this or not. I know within my own personal industry, I have had to do all kinds of things that in the beginning of my career, I did not think I would be willing to do for my employees, including additional PTO, pretty hefty raises right now because of what we're going through. And it's a struggle, but you gotta find a way to balance it because you're only as good as your people. And so, from a business perspective,
Oh, I understand the business perspective. I understand business perspective. Been in business 25 years and I have employees and I know what it takes to retain them. I understand all that. I'm saying what they're getting paid is pretty good.
Let's put aside administrative and just employee. 3% across the board, but do you feel that percentage of that should be merit-based though, based on their performance and how they're doing? Or do you feel
Yeah.
like, let's just do a 3%
no, I'm
across the
thinking,
board?
no, I think.
Because I'm not against the merit, like everyone 3%, but if it's, maybe the merit says 1.5%, but they also have the ability to make 3%
And
based on that. But I
what
mean,
is a definition of a merit raise?
that's all established in
it's
the,
a
in our
performance reviews.
Yeah.
Because I also feel that's a motivator too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a
People
motivator.
gotta, plus it helps get them from point A to point B as far as where you envision.
So that's what we did last year from what I recollect, right? We budgeted for it and it should be allocated as.
But now we're gonna include administrative.
I don't think we need to.
Because that's what this is about, is 3% across the board for all, except for the.
I think all department
But you
heads should
think
be exempt.
department head should also have merit raises in this way?
They're getting longevity. They get longevity pay. They get all of their insurance covered, life insurance, health insured, 100%. County doesn't do that. They're getting a lot of benefits
There's also,
that they need to, take into consideration
and that's
on
true,
top of their salary.
be mindful, there's a $3,000 deductible on that 100% coverage.
That's not that high. $3,000 deductible is not high at all.
Okay, go ahead, Debbie.
I don't think we're gonna settle this tonight. So I think that we need to, I tend to agree that the department heads are paid pretty handsomely, but I do think that a lot of our public works department, or a lot of the other employees, there should be some type of potential merit. But I guess, I think that we need to be really conservative with it because we do have a lot of projects, but people's inflation has gone on and, people need to be able to live too. So can we just for tonight's purposes, move on and get some real numbers? Like I looked at numbers for certain types of employees. I did a research, I've researched it the last day or two. But can we do some of that to see where we are? But go ahead with the budget for tonight, because I just.
Yeah, we can move forward as is, but and then bring you back as much information as we can. A full rate study, and that's probably not what you're asking for.
No, not a full.
Yeah, that'd take a while, but we could definitely get some numbers of comparables. Is that what you're asking for?
But I want real comparables.
Yeah. I think
I don't want cherry pick comparables.
Well,
I'm
I always
serious.
like to do the cities in the area, and then, anyway, that's just. there's also
Our
something to do.
size.
Yeah, you can do our size, definitely,
With our population.
and it really depends on, well, that's gonna get pretty elaborate, but yes, we can get comparable.
But you can do less than 5,000 people or whatever, and you're gonna get relatively close to what we have.
But remember this, Bill, because I think it's really something that needs to be taken into consideration. The average price of housing in our community is not comparable to some other communities of our size. If you ask the school district, they struggle immensely with trying to get teachers here because none of our teachers, hardly any of our teachers live here. They can't afford to live here.
And that's something that we can address as a council. And, we have opportunities to help people find solutions, but when our average citizen household income is $35,000 a year, and our taxpayers, those people that earn that amount of money, are paying these salaries, that's infuriating to people.
Well, I understand that, but we're also asking we're tasking those folks with big jobs. I mean,
Yes, we are.
so it's,
They're earning their money.
they need to be earning their money. Yeah. So, I mean, and that's why I believe in budgeting for something. All we're doing is budgeting for something. And then we are dispersing the money based on merit. So those folks that choose to work really hard, will be rewarded for that work. And, I believe in that. And I want those folks to be part of this community. I don't want them to be commuting from a different community. And yes, there are things that we need to do as council to try to help that situation. But one of the reasons why the school district went to a 4-day work week is to try to retain folks and get teachers. It's the world we live in.
Well, we also are on the city budget. These are government, these are citizen-funded positions. And
Taxpayer money.
the citizens have no assurance of what's being done in City Hall.
Right.
They see where the rubber meets the road, and I think there's something to be said about there comes a point when the city can't afford to just keep paying more forever and ever and ever to individuals. There has to be some type of capacity ceiling until we have capacity growth as an organization and are able to achieve more as a whole.
I don't disagree. That's why I say we should budget the dollars and allocate those dollars on a merit basis. And hopefully, the residents of this community will see things like new streets and a better water system and a better wastewater system. And the city is doing some great things for us. And it's worth the money we're spending.
Well,
Right
I
now,
don't wanna
we're
exclude the
ticky-tack.
department heads and,
Right
or
now,
even a
when
merit raise.
we're ticky-tacking little projects throughout the town, I can see why they're infuriated. Not, you need to put in work. And get some things done. That's why I think that some of these street improvements, I think is a good idea.
I agree with you. But I also agree with what Rebecca's saying. There's a cap. I mean, anybody want to put this slide up there?
Yeah, let's put it up there for the public to see.
I mean, I think, go
I
get some
mean,
feedback.
That's a request.
It's a request, please.
I don't have that slide. No, it was not sent to me, so.
He's got one right there. Let's put it up for the public to see.
I think, you know,
Yeah, I think you need the digital format.
Yeah, needs.
I'll email it to you right now.
Okay, I
I
gotta go
mean,
get.
if you wanna,
I think there has to be a cap on some of this in order to do some of those things. And there's quite a variance here. And you're right, people can't live here. I mean, people are having trouble finding places here. On the flip side, everybody wants to live in the hill country and there's only so much of it. And that's what's generating this huge price increase. And, you know, it's not necessarily
And-
fair, but that is reality.
and if we're talking about, you know, short-term rentals and bed and breakfasts, you know, we can kind of do something about those too. So that those houses can become available to buy for people that wanna live in the city.
But I think there has to be a cap, but I agree that people that are working hard, there should be some merit. So I think there's a split in it.
Yeah, I think we can come to some consensus, but maybe not this evening. But you know, I don't think we're miles apart.
No, I don't think we're miles apart.
Yeah.
So, but
And I think it's helpful for council to be able to see the history. There's a bigger picture, there's more of a story to tell, in terms of when an individual started, what their starting rate was, and how they've grown over time. I think it's an important part of understanding.
That and all the benefits they get life insurance, they get health insurance, we're paying for their life insurance too. And then they get a longevity check if they've been here. That is not something we have to do, that's a bonus. And most of the department heads are getting that. What, can we strike that, longevity?
well, you know, I again, I just be careful. I'm a big proponent of longevity and tenure, and I think I'm just using a similar. The ISD, I think, does retention bonuses. I think they did I think they've done 3% year over year for a good while. Now, they didn't do a 20% catch up and all that, so I don't understand enough about that. And I'd like to know some more.
Well, I think what happened with that too, Tony, is that was supposed to be just for the Public Works Department, to catch them up, because they were at a very low rate. And so that was supposed to be just for the Public Works Department. And then our administrator at the time did it for across the board. That's where that happened.
It was a mistake.
It was a mistake.
It was a misunderstanding. So if
Yes.
you were otherwise informed, that was incorrect.
That's what happened there.
Okay, so now we have it up.
Okay.
Could we actually show people's names and what they're making?
It was put on the dais, so it's a public record.
Okay.
And I mean, HR would probably be the best person to answer that question. And I'm not opposed to you blocking that column, but
It is public.
I mean, it's building information, I'm sure, but we do need to be a little bit careful here. I mean, we can't start talking about any
Oh, no.
individuals, right? Or we can't talk
With the
about,
X and the.
No,
we
we're
care
not.
about separating different folks. That's
I
what-
think it's,
discussion.
yeah, more about the disparity.
Sorry, I've never opened Excel on this new laptop before, so. Okay.
now does the marshal have a separate salary structure? Speaking of that, sorry, I wanted to mention that I have always felt that our salary structure ought to be more formalized. It's very.
Can you move it up so we can see the whole chart, Jill, please?
Well, that's why I was trying to make it smaller, but
I think there's a lot of subjectivity related to our pay and our pay. There's no official structure, right? Like you mentioned the ISD, there's a 1 year, this is what you make, 2 years, and it's so on. It's not selective in terms of who gets a pay increase and who doesn't. everyone coming in with so many years of experience gets
Right there.
this rate.
Right.
So it's clean. Now, I recognize the value of merit raises, and I think we have to have some type of subjectivity, but even those decisions, personality conflicts can get in the way of somebody earning more money because two people butt heads and one is over the other. So we have to be just very mindful that everyone is given the opportunity to earn merit equally. And I would agree with the sentiments of Debbie and Lynn as far as our appointed officials, our salaried officials. I would not be fond of considering an increase on those positions at this time, but our hourly employees possibly have some room to grow.
Okay, what else on that? I think we're gonna resolve it.
What information are you guys gonna be asking of Stan to produce in order to make this decision?
I think it was requested, just the comparables is what Debbie asked for.
But like compared to 2 or 3 different cities, or what
Yes,
education
minimum
do
of
they have, what certifications do they have, what, do they have a diploma from college? I mean, that kind of, you want to take all of that into consideration as well, or what? Because most of our employees, we pay for their training. They're getting educated by the city as well. So
I guess I'd like
that's
to
another
see,
benefit.
Richard, how long have they worked for the city? Where did they start with?
You're talking about our employees that I mentioned?
I mean, just, but, I think we're all kind of great, the department head has to kind of make the merit decision, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Well, he doesn't oversee every employee review, department heads.
Well, I understand that, but if we include 3% in our budget, and we allow that to be dispersed by department head, he controls the department heads, and then those department heads will be allocated certain amounts of money based on.
I think that we had a problem with that last year when department, the employees didn't get any merit raises at all. And they were supposed to get merit raises, and the department head didn't give them any merit raises.
I think that was corrected.
That was corrected.
That administrator's not here, right?
Right.
We need to hold folks accountable. I
Well, that was-
don't wanna micromanage that. Personally, I don't wanna micromanage that.
I'm not-
Okay, so we'll get comparables. Bring back to you. And then there are lots of different ways to do the merits. So maybe I could bring back some examples, but those can be even decided upon after October 1st.
I mean, we're not settling this right now. Just having a discussion.
Well, I think we need to
I'm
have
not for the
some kind of.
3% salary increase, I can tell you that right now.
Okay, so I think we need at least a consensus to make whatever adjustment for the budget submission for the public. And I feel like I'm hearing a few different things still. Linda's saying none at all.
I just feel like that, I mean, I understand that they feel appreciated and they'll feel like, I'm gonna continue to do a good job if I get a raise, a 3% raise, but then also we have to understand that this is our taxpayer money.
It's not a private for-profit
So
business.
if you took out the department heads and then had a 3% budget, would you be okay with that?
Merit raise,
For
for
yeah, but for
employees,
budgeting purposes, we'd have to put a number in there. How we-
but not for, I wouldn't,
Not across the board.
not for department heads.
Okay.
Well, that's where I started at.
Yeah.
I was on board with it last year with the merit raises and kind of skip over administrative or department heads. And I still kind of feel that same way for this year. Next year could be a different story. Until we start finding new solutions for revenue. We're still a small
Yeah,
town
we need
that's
revenue.
kind of stagnant with, unlike, business, we have to grow too. And sometimes businesses have to lay off when they struggle, and we're in a situation where we don't have to do that yet. And, people still have jobs, and that's the most important.
I can go with the person plus the department head.
You have your consensus.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, what was that?
The 3% without department,
So not.
it's for budgeting purposes.
Yeah, non-exempt, yeah. Okay, so just to be clear, non-exempt employees, 3% for the filed draft, for the filed budget on Friday.
Yeah, and it is a merit.
Yeah,
It'll be merit-based,
but obviously
but
5%. Be conservative.
Like
Are our
3%.
salary employees exempt?
No, they are exempt, it's not
For the
exempt.
non-exempt.
non-exempt, for the hourly.
It'd be the hourly,
I thought
not
you said
exempt, I'm sorry if I said that backwards.
Yeah, it's not exempt.
Okay, so,
Okay.
got guidance on that, thank you.
All right, anything else for us, Dan?
No, I did not have anything, in particular, unless you have any questions or on the budget, the draft budget, or if you want to talk about any of those other projects that we spent a lot of time talking about when we were together on the budget meeting.
Well, you're talking about this notebook?
Yeah.
Well, I think that there are things that, are not correct, but they're minor. I don't know how much we want, like this year in this, on the second page of the revenue, it says that we brought in $24,000, actual, or so it's 29,000 now. We have 50,000 for revenue for the park for next year. That's probably not gonna happen. I would like to have a more realistic, unless we get a lot of rain, our park's not gonna be used anymore. So I think that number needs to be changed to a more realistic one.
Okay. You're in the binder now?
I'm in the binder,
Okay.
second
Page two.
page of the revenue, under park revenue. I just think, that one looked a little off to me. I don't understand the transfer in office salaries for revenue,
Yes, so that is,
on the other revenue further down. the
yeah,
page.
and she's talking about number 30997. So,
And 9.5, office salaries.
yeah, well, they're getting combined, that line item's gonna go away, and it's all gonna be in transfer of admin salary. So that is a transfer that accounts for me, Allison, and Jill, because we work for both funds.
In from utility.
So it comes in from the utility fund, to pay part of our salaries, 45%.
Okay. That's the only question.
So I guess if we want to go back to page 1 on the permitting, I'd like to discuss the permitting things, or is this not the time to go up on
I don't,
permits or?
So Stephanie and John were tasked to work on their recommendations.
Okay.
They have done that. They just provided that to me today.
Okay.
I'm gonna meet with them later this week. So I can get that to you beforehand, but we'll definitely have that for the 23rd of the permits.
'Cause I
And,
would.
well, it's part of the whole fee schedule, not just the permits. So-
Because I would like to go up on the vendors fees,
Okay.
food vendors fees. I found out some information, and I'm not gonna take too long, Tony, I know that you don't wanna be hearing all this stuff, but. But, like, the vendors that were in the city park for the Riverfest, they were charged $75 for that place.
it's because it was a BBA fundraiser.
Yeah, and then food, well, that, I was talking to a vendor, And she said that is usually what it is. They end up paying whatever the city charges $20 for the day, and then they also pay whatever the VBA is charging them for having that. And that usually food for one day is like $175 for one day. If they have food, if it's just lemonade and drinks, it's, $75, but food is a lot higher. So I would like to increase the vendor fees.
Okay.
So if we can talk about that
But I will-
another time.
Yeah,
that's
we'll be
fine.
bringing that back to you.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
The red line version.
That's fine.
In addition, Dan, we talked about having another follow-up meeting with our trades people.
Yes.
Has that been scheduled?
No.
Um, Are you covering the rest of any of the CIP or any of the other council input items from this document?
Yeah, I mean, we can go over that, and we can plug any of those in. Some of those are from the hot funds, and we've already talked about the street projects. I think we talked about the wastewater plant debt financing and land acquisition, that's the pad. Probably a good idea to talk about the two deputy marshals request.
Okay.
There's any input on that today.
I don't mind pushing the rest of these off to our next meeting if we've hit our kind of capacity for tonight, but can we be sure that we have the hot fund balance and any other specific funds that we need to consider?
Yeah, we can do that number right now. Do you want that right?
Oh, I don't mind jotting it down right now, but
Yeah.
in addition, isn't there a separate line item somewhere, the wastewater treatment plant fund?
It's its own fund, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I have those numbers for you if you'd like to.
Can we also, I mean, you can spell them out, but can we get them? And
We can email them.
Yeah.
If you want. I think we should do that. Okay. Is that good? Or you still want them?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay,
go
okay, gotcha. Which one would you like first?
Hot,
The hot funds fund balance is $132,000.
and wastewater treatment plant.
That fund is $247,000. The general fund balance is 1.956. That's a healthy fund.
We're gonna need it.
Does that conclude our budget workshop, folks?
Unless you have any other questions.
I have lots of the little, so I'll get it afterwards.
I don't,
Yeah, I can meet with you later.
okay.
That goes with anybody. I can meet with y'all later if you got other questions.
All right, then, item 7, discussion and possible action on the following items. A, discussion and possible action on City of Bandera Resolution number 2024-002, ordering a general election of the qualified voters of the City of Bandera for the purpose of electing 2 city council members and a mayor to serve 2-year terms. This came to us from Jill to pass a resolution for the election. Yes, Tony?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2024-022.
Thank you, Tony. We have a motion to approve and a second by Councilmember Flowers. Any further discussion? Jill, would you like to make any kind of announcements about the dates and the packets while we're?
I have the packets ready. The first day to file for a place on the ballot is this Saturday, but you can't return it until Monday because we're not open on Saturday. And then the last day to turn it in, I don't have the calendar in front of me, not budget, election, different calendar, is August the 19th. Yeah, I think the 19th. So you can start picking up your packets and then return them. And then inside the packet, there is an election calendar that has all of those dates, and when the drawing for the place for the ballot and all the early voting dates and all the things that I've worked with Andrea to get.
And so for the record, the seats that are up are of course mine and Councilmember Flowers and Councilmember Palmer's seats.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion, folks? All in favor? Thank you. All in favor and opposed. Item 8 is close. Ooh. Before we go into closed session, does anybody mind if I pull up item 10, announcements, before we go into closed? No opposition? So real quick, I'll go ahead, because often we have a disperse of the public, and wanted to take the opportunity to address item 10, requests and announcements. Item B, specifically announcements by council. And I would like to remind everyone to please fill out the red grant survey for the city. Do we know the closing date for the grant survey?
I don't think there is a closing date right
Well, I thought we had a schedule when we were supposed to.
Well, just get in there and take that survey as soon as you can.
It's on the website and we've been pushing it out on notifications.
Yes. And if anyone needs a paper copy, they can pick one up at City Hall.
They're right up front.
Great,
now. And in your next utility bill at the end of this month, you'll have another reminder.
great. And I have one congratulatory announcement to make. Tony's firm, Burn Company? Burn Construction has been honored with an award, and it is one of the top 10 best places to work in San Antonio.
Ah, you give all those raises.
That's really, really remarkable.
That's congratulations. Congratulations, Tony.
We're lucky to have your leadership. Yes. Okay, so in that case, now we will go to item 8, closed session. Item A, the city council meet in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551072 to deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Item A, wastewater treatment plant, and item B, city facilities. It's 7:39. It's recess for just a moment.
Tax rates.
Good morning.